It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
Welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcasted from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand. Kia ora, my name's Lewis. I'm the host of the show. If you're new here, there are 101 previous episodes, many of the same or similar lineage to my guest today. That is a thread through music promotion in New Zealand, often particularly in the 90s, it seems. Student radio, particularly BFM, occasionally radioactive down there in Wellington. So pick your path back from here if you enjoy my chat today with Nick D'Angelo, the alter ego of one Simon Lan. I will speak more on the man and the episode in a second, but first, very busy times at Lewis H. I never say it like that. The Irish family down the road from me were big H's. HQ, from Lewis HQ. Busy times here with work, which I won't really go into because that's not very exciting, is it? This weekend, I am going down to... By the way, these podcasts are at their best when they're evergreen, so you might be listening to this. It could be 2030. But this weekend that I speak of is Queen's birthday weekend in New Zealand, which is in June 2021. This weekend, I'm going down to play a reunion gig. There's only one there's two N's in reunion. And then see how I said that third one? Anyway, I'm going to play this reunion gig down in Wellington. And I kind of helped, I didn't help, I hate this word. I curated the lineup because it's a reunion for 90s nightlife in Wellington, and I probably sprouted into that world maybe 94. Got a lot more involved in a number of capacities probably a year or two later. So I had to account for the years that I kind of knew of, but I wasn't around for. And it was I'm quite proud of what we put together. 2 floors. Myself and a gentleman named Leon Baldock, 2 floors, 15 DJs, trying to represent a whole lot of stuff. I put together kind of a little, we should get this person because, and that person because, and we should represent this, and we should do that, we need to cover that. And we've done quite well. So 15 DJs over 2 floors, but really, although, you know, the DJs are important, it's about the catch-ups. But the catch-ups and the gig wouldn't happen without the lineup, so it's all kind of lovely ecosystem. And nightlife, you know, I feel like nightlife sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap. I always remember hearing Greg Churchill not that long ago, only a few years ago, on RNZ being interviewed, and they asked him about whether he used drugs. I was like, doesn't come up for other music scenes generally, or sports people or whatever. It just seemed like such a sort of strangely pointed question. Yes, there are drugs. There are drugs places. But yeah, if you kind of get my drift, you get my drift. But what my broader point there isn't about drugs or no drugs, or nighttime or daytime, or all of those things. It's about what that scene kind of represents in terms of that time in Wellington. For me, wasn't just about kind of great nights out and a real attention paid to music by a lot of people in one room. It was about broader kind of communities, getting to know a lot of people I still work with or are very good friends with, more importantly to this day. Lots of different people doing interesting things, be it the day or the nighttime, in a kind of broadly creative sense, I guess, but also entrepreneurial sense, organizational sense. People like Tim Ward, who I've done a podcast episode with. I mean, everything he's doing now kind of started with some of those key venues. I can't remember what EP is, but go check him on out. And then weirdly, when I kind of stumbled over into academia for postgrad in 2010 and was talked into doing quite an esoteric postgrad topic major, which was creative industries, there's an article called Clubs to Companies that's sort of a seminal article in that field by Angela McRobbie, which talks about exactly this, the kind of what came from that kind of burgeoning scene, in her case in the UK. Nice segue to Simon Land, who was a nightclub promoter in the 90s. Simon approached me a few times about doing a podcast, which is great, because one of my hardest things is kind of chatting on up guests. So thanks for doing that, Simon, or Nick. And he also sent me a dossier, which has never happened before, 3 pages nonetheless. So it was quite easy to put together what we were going to chat about. A few things were left off, but it's a really good. It's a great conversation, whether you know the man, the topics, or whatever. It's yeah, he can chat on a mic. I'd like to think I can. Great mic technique as well. Thank you, Simon. Got in nice and close, but not too close to the condenser. I don't know, and Simon mentioned sort of covers a lot of this stuff in the episode, so I'm not saying anything out of turn, but I wonder whether it's a kind of like him kind of setting the record straight about himself and in the past. It's definitely an explanation and exploration of the past that's probably more guest-led than host-led. I enjoyed it very much. It's kind of maybe perhaps apologising for some things at this point. This is where it's good, where when I talked about with the Moo episode, like, I know Moo fairly well, albeit from a long time ago, being a kind of third party to a lot of this, not being an Aucklander, was probably quite good that Nick chatted to me, but also standing his ground on a few things that kind of happened back then. He was a radio station manager for BFM. He was a music promoter, a bunch of stuff where you're kind of getting stuff done, but you're going to rub some people the wrong way while you're doing that. Enough said. This is one of those really long intros. Like me on the socials, Verbal Highs on Twitter, Verbal Highs Podcast on Facebook. Follow the show on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever you call it, and you can rate and leave a comment there. Follow it wherever else you access your podcast, on whatever app it is, and share. This is a passion project, and so my koha, your koha, if you like this, is sharing an episode or the series with someone either verbally or digitally. Nick D'Angelo, take it away.
Verbal high straight down from up above.
How's the headphone volume?
20 years. Well, it sounds good. Bear in mind... Oh, no, I did bring an inhaler.
I can turn it down if you want the volume in your cans. Cans is the industry term, mate.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that okay?
I remember when Vision TV, they changed from Vision to Track.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So finally, we're here.
Are we recording or just chatting?
Just straight into it.
Oh, goodness.
Look at this Fisher-Price radio station in a box.
Actually very nice. You can dim the lights if you wanted.
Yeah, they took that. It was sitting here. It was set up. I'd done an episode with Luke from the Phoenix Foundation, and he very graciously put me on the door. And sorry if you're listening, Luke, it's not about the ticket, but I was like, I'm an old man now, and I'm going to show my face, but I'm not going to stay for the whole show. And so I went to the power station and back. I think I bussed one way, Uber the other. I think I worked out just under an hour all up, and cleaned up in that time. I think I went out, put some rubbish out before I left, and forgot to snip the door, and that's where all the trouble started.
Well, you vote in a Labour government, this is what happens. Just rampant crime everywhere. Bring back John Key, Bring back John Key.
I was just talking to someone about how your exact political leanings are hard to pick. We're not going in there.
They are, yeah.
Well, I like it because I was saying it means you're not a sheep. You're kind of it strikes me like you evaluate things and have your perspective on them rather than...
I've had a bit of that lately, actually.
Yeah.
Every election cycle I get actually, like, out loud accused of being a Tory on Facebook from people who have been Facebook friends since day one. And suddenly, what I find in elections, especially when they're close, and I predicted the Jacinda win, I predicted the second election win for her, and I've also predicted the third election term for them. But it doesn't matter what you say because people get very testy come election time.
Well, I think now that we kind of publicly brand our personal selves, I think people feel a lot more like they have to sit in a really defined camp. I don't know if you've listened to any of Rogan at this stage, but that's a big dilemma he faces, is like people taking snippets of him and going, that's him.
That is a modern effect of social media, though, and I've kind of felt it too, because I have considered getting rid of the Nick D'Angelo Facebook profile, for instance, because it was created as an extension of my radio character on BFM days, where I would just literally vomit out, say anything I liked on air, and just go and damn the consequences. But on Facebook now, you can't, because everything you say they'll take out that sentence and use that as opposed to the whole paragraph. And later, you're this, or you're that, or you think this. The worst thing I've found, and I mean, I'm over 50, let's put it that way. I'm just being polite. I'm closer to 60 than 50.
Yeah.
I started using emojis purely so people go, hey, I'm having a bit of a laugh
That's why we all use them. I don't use them because they're cutesy or I'm trying to be young.
Just want to be clear.
That's kind of part of the reason they were put on places like Facebook.
But now it's like, because I'm a stale pale male. It's like, you shouldn't be using emojis. I was like, oh, well, goodness.
I never thought about that in terms of, I've thought about the general gist of what you're saying. I have thought about a lot, like how, and I mean, it's talked about on a lot of podcasts and stuff I listen to, that how everything, like how, for example, because I listen a lot of the biggest podcast stand-up comedian hosted, which is unsurprising because they're raconteurs, but they talk about things like that incident that caught on up with Kramer. I mean, that was seriously out of line, but it used to be in a comedy club. Something came and it went in the ether of the world.
Yeah,
it was what you're saying with radio. Like, I never thought about it in that context, because when I did breakfast radio, some mornings we'd go, we flew a bit close to the sun today, but nothing came of it because it was a moment in people's mornings, you know. Yeah, it's a funny one. I thought about removing social media, but then when you remove it, even if something like a new music promo comes through and they say, you need a Facebook account. It's so cleverly...
It's been stitched together very well.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious that you've got Facebook, Zuckerberg, Google and Apple battling now in the courts in America, because the three of them between them are the giants of the digital. And for them to be arguing, Apple, you've got to let us have this. It's like, well, there's a few people who'd like to get 100% of the ad revenue coming off their YouTube account. But
what countries are more powerful than those companies now? A handful, realistically?
Well, about a year or two, I think it was just before lockdown, there was talk like Apple was going to create a cryptocurrency. Facebook were going to create a crypto. They all now came out around the same time talking about these cryptocurrencies.
Their own economy as well.
And it suddenly stopped, right? And those projects have not proceeded. And you have to wonder, was there... And I'm pretty sure there was something behind the scenes, because governments recognise that is a complete threat to their currency.
Oh, absolutely.
And I remember reading probably 20 years ago, definitely 20 years ago, about Japan, where they have the vending machines and where they have the little cards that you pay with. And the guys that run these, because you can buy everything in a vending machine in Japan.
You can.
And it started happening to me too, actually, here. So you get a stored value card, you put $10 on it, you spend $5 and then you lose the card.
Yeah.
That's $5 that those guys don't have to redeem by giving out whatever product. So these guys were getting huge, this is what the whole article was about, these guys were making huge revenues because they only had to allow for a factor of 50% would actually be redeemed. And you see that here. And you remember when Groupon came about?
Yeah, I got an example when you're done.
No, but exactly, all that sort of stuff. And I actually had stopped doing Groupon. You get these great deals and you go, and you rush out. And that was a fad. I don't know how long ago it was. And I know some people still do it. But if you can keep that coupon and redeem that coupon, good on you, you're getting value. But the rest of us is like, geez, what happened? And then when they expire, it's like, and you try to book at a restaurant, they go, oh, no, we can't take you until...
No, the two where I've thought about it is the minuscule amounts you often end up left with on varying prepaid phone plans.
Yep.
Like that's I'm sure that's a huge revenue gatherer for but the other one was kind of related to a lot of stuff we're going to talk about around your background today in events, is when they introduced those, and they're really super handy as a punter, but the electronic bracelet or whatever system it is when you go to a festival. Like if you've partied for 3 days or whatever, how many people line up in that queue of 200 at the end? I don't know how many people queue at the end. Most people just, oh no, they don't even do it that way. I think they say you've got to wait a few days, which is quite clever, and then go online.
Yeah.
So how many people go online to redeem their $4 or their $8 or their $12 times X amount of punters, you know?
Or they got home and snipped off the bracelet when they had a
they
shower.
don't know the number.
And then forgot.
Hey, so...
But anyway, your listeners have just had, your podcast listeners have just had a great example of how I can fluff on a tangent at any moment.
But we both did. That's what podcasts are about. Do you listen to many? That's okay if you don't.
I was just thinking that, right? It's the thing, like I'm trying to. I don't listen to podcasts because, I will occasionally listen to Talkback. Not occasionally. If I'm driving, I'll listen to Talkback radio.
Yeah.
To get a variety of opinions.
Yeah. A variety of opinions?
Often, as you laugh, a variety of the same opinion.
Yeah.
See, I used to work at Radio Pacific as a panel operator for Talkback.
Yeah.
So I have that kind of thing in my blood. I did Talkback on BFM when we had the Talkback. I was actually in between. There's a story there as well, between Marcus Lush and Timothy Giles. So I did this 4-week stint between the pair of them, and that was because, and this is me getting back to student radio. It was a trick. It was a technique. Marcus was so beloved. He was the god of student radio, or BFM in those days. Yeah, he's just such an iconic personality on the station that when he left to join commercial radio, that's what it is, we'll call it that, yes. So when he joined ZB, there was going to be a hole. Whoever replaced him was going to be bring back Marcus. He's not Marcus. You know, so we knew that. So Timothy Giles was going to be the new host. I had to do the 4 weeks in between as a buffer. There's Nick D'Angelo, who was polarising anyway. You know. So I took all that heat. It was deliberate. It was a planned thing. So that everyone could go, oh, Nick D'Angelo, he's no Marcus Lush. Ooh, bring back Marcus. You know, that sort of thing. So I took all that. Then Timothy Giles steps up to the mic, and everyone's like, "Oh God, you're much better than that last dick." Yeah. So you're saying you were the fall guy? Is that the expression? Yeah, well, but it was a strategy. Okay. So Nick D'Angelo. The first question is Simon Lyon, Nick D'Angelo, Norm Pidlick. Lesser known, arguably, but you're kind of not Simon Lyon anymore, are you? Except when you're travelling in. On official documents, is that how it works? On my private Facebook page. Oh, yeah. Do mates call you Nick or Simon? It's really funny. You can date people by what they call me. Yeah. And you can tell people, sometimes when things get heated on Facebook, someone will suddenly go on a Nick D'Angelo Facebook. Simon? Yes, Simon. Very parental, very parental. No, it's very much, hey, we know who you are, really. So what happened is I joined student radio, BFM, except it wasn't FM then, it was still back on 1404 AM. Radio Bosom. Probably about 82, I think, 82, 83, as a student volunteer. And my full name is longer than Laan, actually, it's Dutch, and I don't know, just... Are you first generation immigrant? Your parents are Dutch? Born in Napier. Why'd they come out? Better life. They were both, my parents, my mother was the 9th child. Yeah. My father was the 7th child. Yeah. They're both born in the 30s during wartime. Post-war is, I don't know, a bit of class. And my mother's family were richer than my father's family. My father had only been to technical school, which is equivalent of the old AUT, not what it is now. So there's a bit of a family class war going on. So it was just like, let's get out of here. Yeah. And so to the egalitarian nation of New Zealand. A lot of my family from the Netherlands, they also split. I had some in Brazil, I had some in France, I had some North America. I have them all over the world, thanks to that long lineage. Yeah. So it has been I've been lucky enough to travel a lot around the world. I've been over 175 different cities and
Wow.
places because I could always go to a family member and stay there as my base and travel around. They give me a car and they drive around for 2 weeks and stuff. So I've had that luck and that privilege, whatever you want to call it these days. So I've travelled a lot, seen a lot of places, and my parents, they were the same. They hightailed down here,
Yeah.
down under.
What did they do? I guess your dad or your mum would have been a homemaker. What'd your dad do?
Well, my mother was a homemaker because that was the time. You know,
That's what
it was
I
the
mean,
60s.
yeah.
And but then no, she was a dental assistant. She
Yeah.
worked a couple of days a week in the shop and stuff. I was a State House kid.
Yeah.
I'm from Moranui in
Yeah.
Napier, which I took a trip back there once, back in probably early 2000s,
Yeah.
mid 2000s, and it was crazy because I was in an Audi. Top down, you know, an open top Audi. And
Yeah, yeah.
We pull up outside, and the whole street now was gang
Wow.
colours
Yeah.
hanging out the windows. It's very clear.
Mongrel mob territory, I'm guessing.
Black Power.
Right, okay.
So it was really, really clear. And here I am, sort of like quickly trying to take a photo of my old house.
And your white suit with your Audi.
Well, no, I was fine. But for instance, right next to our house, still living there, was my godfather, who was a Kiwi guy. And he was very, very old by this stage.
Yeah.
I went up to knock on his door, and he's like literally, over his back fence is the start of all these state housing blocks.
Yeah.
The very prominent gang turnout. And of course, he didn't know who I was. He's old.
Old, yeah.
And he couldn't see me. All he saw was this dude in a baseball cap, and you know, so he's just thinking I'm one of the local guys trying to knock on his door and rob him or whatever, you know. And I had to have this big, long conversation with him before he'd actually go and kind of realise who I was, and when we talked about what I was like 30 years before and stuff. So
Crazy.
funny times.
What did you study at uni to end up finding B?
Well, that's the thing. I started what they call a law intermediate, which is that first year pre-law.
Because just quickly backtracking a little bit, you initially wanted to be in film production, right?
Yeah.
At a time when New Zealand really didn't have a film industry.
Well, yeah. Lee Tamahori personally kicked me off a set, and that was the end of
What
my...
did you do?
Well, I decided I wanted to get into films.
Yeah.
So what happened is...
And this is early 80s, so we've only really got... I mean, even Goodbye Pork Pie hadn't come along. It wasn't the industry it was now.
no, they were making Utu. It was Jeff Murphy's Utu,
okay.
and Lee was first assistant director. And I'd finished high school. I took a gap year before going to uni.
Actually, that's when all that sketchy tax money was being thrown at films too. Anyway, that's a different story for another time.
I know all about that too.
Yeah.
So I know someone got caught up in it.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, good old privileged white boy from Pakuranga College, and rolled down, because I knew Napier. So I hitchhiked down to Napier. I knew nothing, right? Just blindly. I ended up in the old railway sheds where they were prepping for the film, and talked to a couple of Māori guys there, and said, I want to get into movies, and I know you got to work for free, and I'm ready to do it. And I was all vim and vigour, and I was like 18, 17, 18. And so they said, yeah, sure. They put me in. They were delivering a little cannon. They were the armourers or something.
Okay.
And they were really young guys,
Yeah.
and they drove really fast, and they were smoking weed, and they're giving me some, and honestly, going through those gorges and those wines, I was just thinking, oh, gee, yeah. It was a hell trip. Got there, and of course, you turn up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed,
Yeah.
and I was so naive, and it's funny what I've learnt since being...
What are your late teens here? Something like that.
No, I'm 18. I'd finished.
Yeah.
So, because I didn't want to go to university. My parents wanted me to go to university, and I was thinking, great, if I get started on films, I don't have to go to
Yeah.
And so I was on set for half a day, and then finally, talking to people, and everyone's like being nice and polite and all that. But basically, Lee Tamahori had a discussion with me, and it was a very short discussion. It was like, no, we don't want you. Why not? It's because we'd have to pay you. I said, no, I don't want to be paid. I just want to get a start. I'll intern for
Did
free.
you say, I've hitchhiked all the way down from Auckland?
Well, probably in a more masculine tone than that, but I didn't. Yeah, I'm not fresh out of puberty, so. But yeah, basically, I said, no, I'll work for free. You don't have to pay me. Don't worry about it. He says, oh, well, then we'll have to feed you.
Yeah.
I said, well, don't worry, I'll get my own food.
Oh my God.
Basically, it was just... But I get it, yeah, that's the naivety of youth, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen it 100 times and 100 different people. I just bowled up there thinking I could crash my way onto a film set and get a start.
But based on what you said, you did nothing wrong, and those stories often go completely the other way. It was just could have been his mood that day. You might have turned up, if it was a Tuesday, you might have turned up on a Thursday, and he was having a different kind of a day.
Yeah,
to me it sounds like one of those
because three crew guys hadn't turned up.
Right.
Sure, come in.
Sure, can you do the work of 3 people?
Yeah.
And we'll give you a filled role at lunchtime.
So it's just that thing. But yeah, that is a testament to my lack of gumption.
Yeah.
I then probably just hightailed back to Auckland, tail between legs, and thought, well, screw the film industry.
But so for a guy that is trying to avoid going to university, enrolling in law is, it's quite a jump. It's not like I'll kind of do a C's, get degrees, BA.
It's an interesting story there because I've always been a thinker or whatever, a bit clever or a bit smart perhaps. So in, I think, 5th form, no, I don't know what year that is in modern language. That's what, year 10, 12, 11? Yeah, exactly. Whatever.
And you've got kids.
You have parent-teachers interviews.
Yeah.
Right. And my parents came home all proud, telling me that one of those teachers had told them, now I happen to know this teacher did not like me much at all.
Yeah.
And she said, your son, he's going to either be a politician.
I got the same story. That's so funny. Maybe it's just something they say.
Or a crook.
Or a crook.
Actually, and I think there's a lawyer as well. And
yeah,
that's and it's like, and it was only a decade later, it would have been after I dropped out of law. It was only many years later that I realised she was being rude about all 3. My parents are going, "Oh, you could be a lawyer,"
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
No, I get it. There's a sort of that she's going for the kind of character archetype of the 3. Yeah, I think I had it was either my mum came back from the parent-teacher interview. It was either a senior teacher or now I'm forgetting what you call things. Principals. What do they call them? What's the other thing they used to call them at primary school? Not principals. Headmaster had said that I'll be Prime Minister one day, which I won't. So what happened with law? You found student radio. You found the long hairs on campus.
Within the first term, I joined up at student radio, campus radio, Radio B, and signed up as a volunteer. By the second term, I very, very erratically continued going to lectures, and by the 3rd term semester, I was not going to any lectures at any time of the day, and I just totally dropped out.
And you might not even remember the details, but what I've heard from peers over the years that have both got through a law degree or done part of one is that a lot of those early papers are quite dry. They're sort of learning, I don't know quite the details, but there's a few papers that are basically just like rote learning kind of things you need to know, You get over that hump. But then there's a link, you're one of those people who's got that kind of penny drop moment of something happening when you heard a Malcolm McLaren interview on B, right?
Didn't hear it. I sat in on it.
Oh, he was there.
Yeah.
Right,
this is the thing, right? So it would have been 83, and I was.
What's going on in my hallway? But anyway,
there's a party. We haven't been invited.
Right.
So very rude. So there's a hierarchy in student radio, sure it is in every place. And it's like, you join as a volley, you do a bit of work, and then you get to maybe do an on-air shift and da-da-da. So there's a whole system, and it's actually a de facto way of training people up.
Yeah.
You got to learn the culture. You can't just come in and suddenly be the breakfast host.
Unless you're Mikey.
There's a story there. But anyway, and so I was very meek and mild. And this is how the Norm Pitlick name came about.
Yeah.
Because when I joined, there were 5 Andrews on staff. All of them later went on to be quite, I wouldn't say famous, but they all went into commercial radio.
Andrews of note.
Yeah. Most famous, perhaps, Andrew Dickens.
Yep.
Who's been in commercial radio for a long time. Andrew Bowick.
He's been on this.
I'm not going to rate him. Andrew Bishop, who did Feline.
Yep.
Andrew Topping. I am naming them. I won't. I'll stop now.
You've only got one more to go. Anyway, go. That doesn't matter.
So they were all, when I arrived there, they were all like not the five, but just the whole station, the guys. It was definitely a male-dominated thing at that time, which Debbie Latey dealt to quite perfectly. But they're all black-trousered, Cure-loving guys from ex-grammar, you know, even though they tried to pretend they were enemy-loving street wombles or whatever. So I tried to pick a name that was the most anti-everything you could have. And so I came up with Norm Pitlick. So when I went in here, what's your name? I announced myself as Norm Pitlick. I was the student, I was the newsreader, right? So I'd read the news as Norm Pitlick with the news and did all that. Anyway, somehow, and it happened even on station, no one knew about it, right? But I talked, and for the life of me, I can't remember the guy's name. So by happenstance, he's listening. Come forward. Because he was one of the guys on station. He was going to do this interview with Malcolm McLaren. And at that stage, Radio B was not on air full time. We were on it. You could hear us on lunchtime. You could hear after 4 o'clock, right through till midnight. But the rest of the time, we basically switched off the frequency and you could only hear us in the quad.
Yeah, it's a licensing thing back then,
So what would happen is, say, after 2 o'clock, when lunchtime was over, we would use the studio for, like, recording interviews and stuff and different things. And they'd had the Cure in however long ago beforehand, and, of course, the word got out that the Cure was coming for an interview, and, of course, you ended up with 50 diehard Cure fans draped up and down the fire escape, all trying to meet the band and stuff like that. So when Malcolm McLaren came to promote his album Duck Rock, it was decided no one would know, including people on station, because there's literally hundreds of volunteers.
Usher them in, usher them out.
Sneak them in, sneak them out, do the interview. And I don't know why, but the guy who did the interview let me sit on the floor right next to this little setup like we are now. And I just listened to Malcolm McLaren talk. And Malcolm McLaren, I knew, was the guy who gave us the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
Now, love him or hate him, and a lot of people have said, oh, you're a bit of a Malcolm McLaren yourself. They said that to me in later years.
That's been said to me when I said you're coming up. Yeah.
Same as self-promoter.
Yeah.
Is that what they said about me? Yeah.
No.
No, but anyway, that's what I mean,
Let's
right?
not move on to the therapy couch yet. Come on.
No, I've been through it all. But I found him, I took him at face value because he tried to claim some connection to the New York Dolls as well for himself. And he's definitely a raconteur, he's definitely a showman, he's definitely he's probably everything that everyone's said about him. But right at that time, I thought to myself, he's talking about breakdancing being the next big thing, how it's going to be in the Olympics, how Double Dutch is going to be in the Olympics. Now, I was already into hip-hop by then.
This is 84, so interesting, time in New Zealand where it all started bubbling up.
But I'd been a disco kid, rejecting my white Pakuranga roots by getting into disco and stuff. And I was much more attuned to East and South Auckland than I was to North Shore or the West or whatever, whatever. So I was attuned to it, so I picked up on it. And we already knew then there was sort of a moral panic going on in the media about all these kids down on Queen Street dancing in malls and dancing on the tile up and down Queen Street in front of Countrywide and stuff like that. So I actually got off my butt that Friday, literally a day later, went down there and caught the action live, as it were.
And you're still only like 21, 22, eh?
I was 20.
20,
Yeah. So I realised this is something here. Now, I've always been attracted to youth culture. When I was at high school, I was doing a lot of stuff in the social activities area for the school, students. I actually launched a BMX club out in Hauck and Pakuranga off my own bat. That was my first entrepreneurial effort. There's another story there. But anyway, so I picked up on it, and what was the problem? There's no problem. These guys were having a great time. Sure, some of them were only 10 years old and were out till 10 o'clock at night, whatever, but they were with their cousins, they were with their brothers. The issue seemed to be that they were on the street doing it.
Yeah.
So I came up with the idea, let's bring it inside and to the YMCA.
Yeah.
And what better way, this is my puck out roots, baby, I don't know. I thought we could make money out of this. So I charged everyone, it was $2 to get in, $2 for kids, $4 for adults, or $6 for a family ticket,
Great.
which covered the whole family. So,
Competition or something, like something to ground it, or just just a demonstration?
no, it was just competition. It was a battle.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
And I didn't just go out one night and do it and
Yeah.
go, great, we're going to do that. It was actually, I spent about a month getting into the scene and figuring it out and just jump on it. But I put up, at the time, it was $1,000 cash prize money.
Big prize, man.
Yeah. As of the one after, it jumped to $1,500 because
Yeah.
I was taking in so much money at the door. The kids loved it. They were battling for prizes. It was who won. It's the whole thing about hip-hop, who's the best sort of thing.
And it's kind of, just to cut you for a sec, it's kind of before companies were all over youth culture. Did you manage to get any brands to give you anything, or were they like, ugh?
They were like, ugh.
Yeah, it's funny, eh? How things changed. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, so we were packed out. We were
Yeah.
huge. It's called Breakdance 83, I think, from memory. I had the poster. And I made it up in the Crackham office
Yeah.
because Radio B had their own little newsletter thing, so I was sort of working. So I had it was all cut and paste. It was it was a funny system of publishing back then. But I'd found an image, a line drawing of a kid doing a twister flex in an imported NME, so I cut that out, and that became the actual image for my poster, which was later, I wouldn't say copied, but inspired heavily the CBS Records compilation, Street Music.
Oh, yeah, I've got that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I actually was involved in that album.
Because that's, people, well, heads know, but other people wouldn't when it came out. It was a New Zealand-based compilation.
Yeah, sold 22,000 copies. It's huge. So I launched, did the thing. We sold the tickets through Uncle's. We sold them on the door. It was great. It was actually sponsored by ZM, or 1ZM, back then.
Before their no rap, no crap days.
I think it was just after. It was actually what happened was, 1ZM was some sort of station, just music station, and the ZB was the talk station or whatever they were, the oldie station, and 1ZM had a mandate that they were going to be the youth station, and it only lasted for a year. But I was there that year.
Yeah.
So I had talked to them because they had banned white lines.
Yeah.
They had it on playlists, played 11 o'clock at night. It was on the late list. And then they pulled it off, and that was in the media. So I wrote to them and said, why are you taking it off? It's not a pro-cocaine song. It's saying white lines don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, of course, also very naive, because years later, Melly Mel himself would admit we were doing so much coke.
Flavor Flav was, by his own admission, a crackhead when they recorded the anti-crack track. Yeah.
I had a meeting with him too. I'll tell you about. But anyway, so I had him at the right time, and they said, hey, we're not going to play that song anymore, but we like what you're doing. Because anyway, I got them to promote these breakdance competitions at the YMCA. And I got it all for free. So that obviously got the word around, plus my posters and stuff. So we had a great thing. I started doing competitions.
Yeah.
And then through the competitions, one crew in Auckland kept winning them, and that was the Megazoids. Now, by that stage, there has been another, shall we say, promoter, guy called Jerry Otamai, and he was what he called, his thing was called the United Breaking Society or something like that. He was the one who talked to the Sunday News about the Pākehā rip-off merchant, which was me. So there's a lovely photo. I've got a great clipping of me and him separately photographed, but our photos both put up. And so there's Jerry, Māori, smiling. There's me with these dark panda eyes. I don't know what they did.
They did the classic press thing
and
made you look like a ghoulish, robber.
And this is very early media training for me, because the headline, not the headline, but the caption was, I'm not a rip-off merchant. And that's a trick I learnt later. You ask someone a question and they go, no, I'm not.
And then that's the headline.
And then it's like, well, you said it, So anyway, whatever. So it was a funny thing. So there became this a street-level type of battle between him and me.
Yeah.
And what he was doing. And what he had is he had Kath Tizard, who was the mayor of Auckland at the time. So he'd won her over. So the council had spent $50,000 converting a flatbread trailer into a sort of a fold-out dancing stage. And he was doing stuff down in Aotea Square for free every Friday night.
So he had the public authorities on his side. Yeah.
And that was cool. I actually had no problem what was going on. But I'd never ever understood it. But there became this thing with my competition series and his competition series, and he was all about doing it for the kids and stuff. And anyway, long story short, because he was taking some of the kids off on tour, and they were going to all his different Mariahs and doing shows. And basically, well, I can only talk about the Megazoids. So they came to me, one of the mothers, and said, listen, our guys are really good. They're doing all these floor shows here, there, and everywhere all over the North Island. They're not getting paid. They're not getting anything. The guys were like, they're told they'll get something, but it doesn't happen.
So talk to the shopping mall or the whatever it is.
So whatever. I became, at that point, the manager of the Megazoids, which worked for me because we agreed you guys aren't going to enter the competitions anymore, and more other guys can have a chance.
Now, at this point, we need to stop to point out that you needed to go back to your Dutch immigrant parents and say, I've dropped out of law, but don't worry, I'm managing a breakdance crew. My
parents were there at the first thing at the YMCA. They were taking money off the people, letting them in.
Great.
Right?
Oh, good.
You always have your own people on the door, man.
Yeah.
Otherwise you wake up going, what do you mean there was only $200 in Dagans? Anyway, my father was wrapped. I mean, they were all just thrilled because it was such a fun atmosphere. There were people, when I say we charged to get in, there were people on all fours crawling under the legs of other people who were paying, just steaming through. We didn't care. It was fun. It was like...
yeah. Oh, that's good that your parents were really supportive.
No, but they also thought I was still doing law. They didn't know. Because I was going to BFM, I was student radio, sorry. I was at Radio B. I was still going in to university every day.
Yeah.
They didn't know that I'd stopped doing lectures and hadn't, that was hilarious. Anyway.
The Megazoids, start managing them.
Yeah, so we're doing floor shows, we're getting paid, the guys are getting money to pay for their uniforms, all this stuff. They were very happy. And actually, when you say manager, you do think of, say, a Simon Gregg or a Malcolm McLean. I don't know, a proper manager who takes maybe the Backstreet Boys, takes their money, takes their 25% or whatever. It was never like that.
Yeah.
We had, the Megazoids had a cash account, and it was split amongst how many of us were. So my job was not to dance, my job was to get the gigs and do it all.
So it's like the Fat Freddy's Drop model. Yeah.
Don't know it personally, but yeah.
Well, it's pretty much whether you play the trumpet or you're doing a lot of the programming like Moo, my understanding is you all take the same slice of the pie. Part of the reason they've been together for.
So I had the car. So I was the guy that could drive around, get these deals signed up before they happened. I could pick up the crew from different parts of Auckland. We could go to practice at a local hall every week. We could go to these gigs, do these gigs and so forth. So
great.
I'm confident they got value out of me.
And what happened? Just reached its natural course like things do.
Well, two things happened actually. Yeah, it did run its course.
And are you still mates with any Megazoids today?
Yeah, very much.
Great.
I saw some recently. But the Megazoids sort of morphed into the Smooth crew, the graffiti crew. So, but what happened, the last thing that happened with the Megazoids was, at my own expense, I flew over to Sydney to try and get work over there because basically Auckland was saturated. The level of b-boying in New Zealand was better than Australia, we thought anyway.
Yeah,
well,
it makes sense.
You can argue it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got to Australia. I was in the Hilton. I'm talking to the guy that runs the Hilton Everage Entertainment, whatever. So he's telling me about how he succeeded in getting Tina Turner back on the game. Sorry, that's apologies. Awful turn of phrase. Tina Turner.
We know what you mean.
She'd been completely retired. She actually did a stint at the Hilton in Sydney, and her management actually was that for her comeback that we remember from the 80s was Australian.
There's a great doco about her that came out recently, by the way. I'd recommend you watch it.
What streamer? Yeah, okay. We'll look it up.
It's like this. Mark Maron, the comedian's got this bit about it's on Dolphin Flicks. It's on Channel 8 of Dolphin Flicks. I don't know if I have Dolphin Flicks.
So anyway, this guy, we hit it off, and he said, "Listen," so I told him I was here to try and get work. He says, "We will put you in our club. We will give you guys free accommodation, free for, comp you completely,
Yeah.
for your stay, and all you have to do as payment is to do a floor show at our
Great.
nightclub every night." Great, that was sorted.
So maybe a first overseas trip for some people?
Yeah, definitely. And so I went then to Hoyts, and Hoyts had done Breakin', the movie promotion with the Rocksteady crew. They were now going to be promoting Electric Boogaloo, Breakin' 2. But of course they had budget in mind, so they thought this will be great. We'll get these New Zealand guys over, and they can be the guys that we have performing at movie premieres, different malls and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had this whole deal stitched up. The only thing missing, because these are Australians and they're very wary, it says you just have to fly yourself over here. We're not giving you any money up front, but here's the contracts. It was all letters, all legal, legit. So I fly back to Auckland with contract in hand. Yeah, we're going to be huge. And what had happened while I was gone, because it was just coming up to Christmas,
Yeah.
the guys had kind of realised that the end of the money train was slowing at the station and all that. And
At the station? You mean at the
Whatever.
with the crew, the dance crew?
No, the money train was slowing down.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They weren't stupid. They knew that we're not going to be getting gigs and stuff. They hadn't known, because I hadn't told them what I just secured for them in Australia, which would have been huge. It was all going to be through January
Yeah.
and February. And they had convinced one of them, because the bank account wasn't just me. Mother was signing authority and stuff in that way. No one could be ripped off and rah. Somehow the mother had convinced the bank that I had left, and that so they gave her sole signing. They withdrew all the money from the account, and because it's coming up to Christmas, and they bought themselves this ginormous ghetto blaster, and we were flat broke.
Yeah.
As an economic unit. And that was it. We couldn't afford the airfares.
So one ghetto blaster back then cost the same as all those airfares?
Well, at least half of it.
Yeah, no, totally. I'd imagine that once someone got signatory on their own,
I would have paid.
would have been a bit more than a ghetto blaster.
It doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
and it's I'm totally cool with it. It's just one of those rock and roll stories, as it were.
No, I get it. That they kind of like you couldn't do it. You couldn't do what you'd arranged. Yeah.
Yeah, we were prevented from doing it.
We seem to hit an abrupt full stop with that story. I thought it was going quite well.
Well, no. But that was the end of the Megazords.
Yeah, that was the end of the Megazords.
And they could have gone on. They could have carried on. They could have done something using that Sydney thing as a lift-off. But
Oh, no, absolutely. I get it. And especially around that era too. Excuse me. We should probably move forward a bit, because you did you refer to it as your OE, but you did make it over to England.
to the UK, yeah.
To London in 87. And you said that, and obviously everyone knows what the state means in terms of the world financial system. You had a whole lot of money in shares before you went, right?
Well, I put all my money in shares before I went, because
When you said your life savings, I want to pry, ask about these things. How much life savings could a breakdance promoter in their early 20s have? Not that you lost a house deposit or anything, or did you have other things on the boil as well?
I had other things on the boil.
Right. So you've always been about making it quid where you can.
So I'll tell you this money,
Yeah.
but please don't
Tell anyone?
Don't anyone think that.
Oh, you're going to say, please don't tell anyone.
just between you and me, Lewis.
Yeah.
As the rest of you turn your volume down.
Yeah, okay. $10,000.
The reality was I was a hustler.
Yeah.
So as well as doing the Megazords,
Yeah.
I also started managing bands,
Yeah.
which was not highly successful. We'd also started Smooth Crew.
Yeah.
We were getting the same system as the Megazords. We were making money off that. We were getting paid to put murals up on the walls around Auckland.
Yeah.
doing our graffiti and stuff. I was working full-time in a nightclub 4 nights a week, sometimes 6. So I was making money.
Yeah.
And I was keeping it because I think I was still living at home with my parents out in Howick. I'm trying to remember. For a good portion of that time. So I very frugal. I'd amassed $23,000.
Yeah.
What do I do with it? Okay, well, I'm going over for my OE. I don't know how long I'll be. I'll put it in the share market.
Yeah,
because
it's going off.
Because it's freaking, February 19...
It's money for nothing. What could go wrong?
It's February 1987, and my goodness, wasn't 86 a good year for the share market? So very young, very naive, threw it all in.
Did you have... Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll ask details. Keep going.
Get to London. Honestly, I was only there a month. Now, this is the... Oh, gosh, funny story. I arrived, and my friends who were living in the South End were telling me... So Prince had been in like 3 months earlier and sold out Wembley, sold out multiple nights. It was huge. Everyone wanted to go, couldn't sign the Times, all that stuff. And so they told me, if you want to make money, go and buy 10, because he's announced he was going to do the rest of Europe, then come back and do more gigs in London.
Yeah.
They said, buy as many tickets as you can and scalp them, and you'll quadruple your money. So I only just arrived.
You really are that guy.
And I pretty much ran off to Wembley first thing. And I knew there was trouble because I'm getting off the train, I'm walking the long walk up to the ticket box first thing on Monday, and there were no long queues of people waiting to buy tickets for this second series of concerts. As the tabloids had told us at the weekend, it was going to be mania. So I got my 10 tickets, no questions asked, even though they were supposed to be anti-scalping. They sold me 10 tickets. Thank God the show was actually cancelled due to poor ticket sales, because I finally got my money back. But I had to wait. It's like 6 months.
Why was it cancelled due to poor ticket sales?
Because they were poor... No, he'd already just been. That was the whole thing. So there's a good thing to learn, what I learned later.
Why did they sell you tickets afterwards? I missed the thread of that one.
Sorry. He'd done his London dates as the start of his European tour.
Yeah.
They went... sold out. It was huge.
Yeah.
Couldn't get tickets. So he carries on to France, Germany, whatever. He's doing the rest of Europe, Italy. So rather than fly back to Minnesota, they go, okay, we've announced some extra dates, some new dates for London on the tail end of his European thing.
Yeah.
But it was now 2-3 months. Those dates were 2 months after the sellout London series.
Yeah.
People didn't want to go.
No.
It's the same reason why when they...
That's the short answer. Okay. Yeah, they'd had their Prince fix for now.
They'd had it, and they didn't want those tickets.
No.
And can you imagine, though, if he'd gone ahead with it...
If you'd held on to them, they might be worth more now as
possibly. Memorabilia.
the cancelled... I think it was a cancelled New Zealand show after Kurt Cobain died. There's some story like that.
Right. I've got Michael Jackson, a poster of Michael Jackson at the Mount Smart Super Top. Mount Smart from the Bad tour.
I've got a ticket.
That never happened.
Oh, that never happened. I've got a ticket stub from the one in 93 where what looked like a real tank came on stage at the end, and a whole lot of children from the local primary school. It was a lovely moment.
So anyway, I'm in London. I've arrived in late February, early March. I send a postcard to my mother. That's the first that she knows that I've left.
Yeah.
She gets the shock of her life on my birthday, sorry. She gets a birthday card from me from London saying, hi, I'm here. And she was freaking upset.
Did she say, how are you going to make your law lecture on?
They knew by then, I think. And
that's called a callback.
But then 2 weeks after that, so everyone thinks about the 87 crash as happening in October. That was the global crash. In New Zealand, we had a crash at the end of March.
Yeah.
I lost half the value of my shares in that New Zealand crash. I'm on London, I'm ringing the broker in Auckland, and he's assuring me it's just a blip, don't you worry.
He's on his big, huge phone.
Yeah, and he said, just leave it. There's no point selling because all the money's gone. So I left it. And then lost that other half in October.
Oh, my God.
Because when you're in London, when you're away, it's like, okay, it's money in the bank, it's, whatever, it's gone. So basically...
Well, at least with the exchange rate back then, if you make some pounds, it's a lot quicker way to make it back on up. When I was there, it was 3-1, admittedly quite a few years later.
Yeah, it was about 3-1 when I was there too.
Yeah, it was like that for years, right? It was pretty
But the other thing that had happened was, what's the statute of limitations?
It's an abstract concept. Tell me.
Well, I'd been issued with a credit card by someone, unrequested. This is the 80s, right?
Yeah.
They were mailing you credit cards.
Yeah.
And I didn't use it. I didn't do anything with that credit card at all, because it arrived just before I left. It's an Amex, and I used it in London buying steak dinners for my friends. It was fine. It was lovely until someone turned up on my door.
In London?
Oh, my parents, wouldn't like your son to get a bad credit rating, would we?
Yeah. They gave the details.
And it's like, anyway.
They had a rep in London. Amazing.
No, it's debt collection, basically. But it was fascinating because my parents were
Was
that
it like
generation.
East London debt collection? No.
No, it was legit. But
Big chain, Reebok shoes.
But my parents were like, they're of that generation. It's all straight up and down.
Totally.
It's like,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've inherited a bit of that off different generation, but I've got the same from my mother. She's kind of Lisa Simpson approach to life.
No, but
so.
the idea of dobbing me in, that's like...
Yeah. Actually, my mum would probably be a bit more streetwise in that capacity.
Yeah, it's
she'd give me grief, but she probably wouldn't tell them where I was.
I'd give my daughter grief if she did something.
Right, but you wouldn't know.
But I wouldn't go, well, actually, you can find her. She lives over and,
Yeah.
here's
And-
her address and her phone number. Anyway, so that was fun. So basically, I was flat broke in London for more than a few months.
That's the only way.
Back to hustling.
Yeah.
And it was a fun time because that was, to me, the golden age of hip-hop.
Yeah.
I got to see LL Cool J, Public Enemy,
Wow.
Beastie Boys,
People forget.
Eric B. and Rakim.
People forget, like, LL Cool J was a force to be reckoned with back then.
He
was one of the greats.
His show, and I recorded it. And when I got back to Auckland, we did something up at Radio B where can I tell this story?
What did you bootleg on back then? Some huge tape recorder in your underwear.
No, I had a Walkman.
Yeah.
Where if you put the headphone plugs into the microphone socket, you then had a microphone.
Oh, yeah.
So you walk in with my super dope fly Walkman,
Yeah.
and then you just
With the clip for your belt. Yeah.
and just change the plugs,
Great.
the jack.
I'm sure that sounded amazing.
It sounded quite muddy, right? But what we well, as you would, it was exactly what you would expect it to sound like.
Yeah, it was headphone being used as a microphone being recorded with cassette tape.
But it was good because it provided all the crowd and audio noise.
Great.
And you could
Yeah.
hear him rapping.
Yeah.
And what we did is we got his album and we put it on the turntable.
Yeah.
And it took almost nothing to sync the record up.
Oh, you put
With the
put
concert.
the real music in, got you. That's some nice bootlegging.
So this is the thing. And that's when I learned back
Yeah.
then, because this predates...
When Minidisc first came out, or actually probably a few years after they came out, somehow I got through a friend of a friend of theirs had bootlegged a DJ Shadow show using their Minidisc. The guy next to him, it was a concrete floor, had a nitrous popper. And so every time he did a nitrous balloon, you'd hear that. So through the bootleg, you'd hear... And then you'd hear ka-dink as the bulb hit the ground. So there was this crowd colour of like, I think, God, he must have done 20 or 30 of them.
If anyone remembers the early days of bootleg movies, which was someone on a handycam in a cinema.
Yeah.
And then
they
the guy...
would say cam on the torrent sites. I just realised...
Then the guy in front stands up and walks out of his seat and you see his head moving.
Yeah,
across.
totally. I just realised my impersonation of a nitrous was... that's some knowledge there. I think I made that sound quite convincing.
Well, you've obviously done some NOS, haven't you?
Yeah,
You're a miscreant youth.
So then you come back and you end up at B in more of a, I guess, because for people who don't know, those organisations are a large pool of volunteers and then a kind of core motley crew hold it all together, your station manager, your PD, your salespeople, So you come back and start working for them in a more official capacity, right?
I came. That's true. My first job was as advertising manager at the station.
Yeah.
And when I got back, Judy Arnaru, who was the station manager, she'd taken over from Debbie Gibbs, who was the station manager before I left.
So the sausage Andrew Fest had kind of...
I say that loosely. I mean, they were great guys.
No,
but,
no,
you know,
totally.
But I mean, Debbie Gibbs came in after them, the year after them, and she really basically kicked ass on the station.
Jude Unruh, I mean, I know that name from
Yeah.
her being involved with B, and I don't know
Yeah.
her, you know.
So she took over, Debbie, and I think if you look at historically, female station managers are much better than male station managers. It's about handling volunteers. We won't get into a sexist argument. Anyway,
That's
so I come
not
back
sexist.
and Judy says to me, goes, hey, and you're back. Oh, that's great. So, oh, by the way, we want you. We need you. We need your promotional skill. We need your, what do you call it, business savvy, whatever. Basically, she knew I was a hustler that I could make money,
Yeah.
right?
Shrewd peasant cunning.
Yeah. So she effectively told me that. And part of it was also that while I was away, they'd set up the B card.
Yeah.
And the B card was actually something that I had brought to the station back in about 85, 86, after seeing a similar type of card over in 4ZZZ in Brisbane.
So it's a subscriber card for listeners,
Yeah.
and it kind of aligns them more closely with the station,
Yeah.
brings revenue in, and increases advertising kind of bonds with the station. It's kind of a win-win in a lot of areas.
It's totally a win-win. And this is pre-social media, pre-everything, right?
Yeah. Subcard in Wellington, same
So
thing.
I wrote a big report, handed it might have been to Debbie, gave it to the station back then, and it was one of those things like, oh, what's this wacky idea? You know, it's got merit and 4ZZZ are doing, oh, that's great, but it wouldn't work in Auckland. Anyway, Radio B was always needing revenue during my absence, because they often, and this was explained to me later because I went further up the management chain, Radio B was owned by the Student Association.
Yeah.
Radio B every year lost money.
Yeah.
Every year they would start again with a new student executive because they kept getting voted in, so it's always changed. So all they had to do every year was say, we are expecting expenses of $100,000 and we're expecting revenue of $120,000 from ad sales. Great. Off you go, lads. And every year they come back and go, well, you know, ad revenue was only 65,000, unfortunately, but we'd still managed to spend 100, you know. So there's always a loss.
Yeah.
And then one year to explain how they're going to get this additional income, they threw in a B card idea. So that's why that happened. So I came back, the B card sales it had kicked off, wasn't as huge as it could have been. So she said to me, okay, you can be advertising promotions manager, let's really make it happen. And I literally flogged it to the ASB Bank for 25 grand.
Great. You did that secretly because corporates were like a dirty word back then, eh?
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. I told you that story. Okay.
It was in the dossier you gave me before.
Yeah,
this.
no, I'm sorry, I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting. Yeah, I remember how much now that I told you.
Yeah.
This pre-interview stuff. So basically, I'm the sales manager. I'm selling advertising. One thing I did, and this probably was the start of not everyone loved me, right? And that was because I shook things up in the sense that you're charging $30 or $25 for an ad.
Yeah.
At the spot rate, they call it. So that was way too low. Plus, it might have said 25 on paper, but you're only paying 50%.
Yeah. I've done all of this. Yeah.
So I said,
you have the mentality in Wellington of like the Cuba Street Cafe that's advertised for a million years, so they get hundreds and hundreds of ads. Like I know all of this.
Yeah.
The dilemma of trying to move quote unquote student radio into a higher realm. Yeah.
particularly when we did Contra. So,
Yeah.
you know, Looney Tours, they've got the Clean playing or whatever. There's a Flying Nun tour. Well, their whole schedule's for free, effectively.
Yeah.
They buy something. I'm not even going to those.
Yeah.
Basically, you can comp, you can double the value, you can give them the added value, but you've got to have a baseline.
Yeah.
And getting $200 off someone or $300 off someone isn't going to cut it. So I had to bring things up to a $600 spend. And then, sure, we'll give you $1,200, we'll give you $1,500. I had one of the things Judy Unruh did was send me off with the guy from Radio Pacific, the sales manager there, and he taught me all the stuff, and it was brilliant. And he was later fired for selling Contra, I hear, but anyway, whatever. But it was a funny thing, and he took me down to some sporting goods store down Dominion Road, and he told me kind of what was going to happen before. He told me afterward, we meet the guy, he wants to buy ads, and he listens to that stage, Radio Pacific, at a certain time because he loves the host and da-da-da, and that's the only time he's got. So as we're driving away, he goes, so what did you learn there? I said, he loves Radio Pacific and he loves Tim Biggerstaff or whatever, you know. He said, no, the smartest way to sell ads is run of station because you can scattergun. But he wants to be able to hear his ad
On his,
the time that he's listening. So they sold him a package. And that's how I learned about the types of radio audience, advertising buyers, so forth.
Yep.
And that was kind of a difference between me and many others around me at the time, and it's changed a lot. Don't get me wrong, this is last century, almost 40 years ago.
In the 1980s.
Well, when I was there, so Radio B, it was campus radio, and our strapline, our slogan was the alternative. And for the majority of people on station, it was like, well, we're the alternative. We don't do things that way.
You just eloquently summed up what I was trying to get to with talking about the environment versus dealing with externals. Yeah.
Because I remember earlier on, I had a lot of arguments with other people on the station because we were breaking tracks. We were breaking REM. We were breaking Guns N' Roses. We were breaking Fine Young Cannibals. I mean, Billy Idol, White Wedding was a Radio B track.
Yeah.
But of course, the 89 FMs of the world or so, someone commercial would pick it up, and suddenly it was like almost ceremonial, marching that vinyl off the station and throwing it into a pit, because suddenly it's, oh my God, it's commercial. Well, it's like, no, hang on. 2 weeks ago it was fine to be placed.
A tune. Yeah.
You know, and if you're listening to Radio B, you're not listening to 89, so who cares? But anyway, whatever. So I was employing some sort of standard business techniques, commercial radio techniques, in order to create revenue without, in my opinion, changing the sound of the station. We never took agency ads.
Yeah.
That was the rule. BFM always made their own. Radio B kept making their own ads. We would write them, client would love them, and that was how it was. There came a push later, and that was after my time, to accept agency ads that had been written by an agency creative. I don't think there's a brief period where it might have been one or two, but actually what ultimately happened within the station was the creatives in the 90s actually ended up getting taken by commercial advertising, so it all worked out.
Yeah, everyone, that's right, a lot of people ended up.
But anyway, I was very controversial because they considered that I was selling out the station. There was a lot of opinion that I was sold too much, or that I was trying to demand too much of our audience as advertisers. And I was going, no, we've got to pay. I mean, you guys, we had 7 paid staff at that time.
I think people who make great leaps and bounds in organisations, I've not heard of anyone like that who doesn't rub some people the wrong way on the way through that.
Yeah.
You know?
They call it being a change agent. Which it didn't set out to be, but I felt there needed to be changes. And you did you kind of rejigged their fundraising campaign to be a kind of listener supporting the station. Yeah, the Bombathon. What were they fundraising for before that? Well, that's another example, right? The Bombathon is just a glorification of the ye-old radiothon,
telethon.
Yeah, telethon, radiothon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing new, but we made it a student Radio B thing. So we created the Bombathon.
Yeah,
that was me. We're going to do it. Okay, everyone's like,
and what? So like,
and that was just a pledge drive.
Yeah, we did a couple of them at Active in Wellington. We did one for our Signal Boost, which I kind of basically hosted. I stood in a bar in town for a whole weekend day from memory. It was people coming and going, advertisers who loved us with products. Oh, we got a case of beer here. Who wants to bid for that? Was it that sort of thing like that? Just in general,
all that stuff.
Yeah,
we talked to our advertisers, we talked to supporters,
and we had DJs playing live to air in the bar.
Exactly.
So you'd cut to them every now and again. There was little 19-year-old Lewis on the mic.
You're basically just throwing.
I was basically being a carnival barker, really.
Yeah.
An alternative radio station carnival barker.
Yeah.
But I loved it. My name was on the poster.
That was great fun.
My name was on the poster.
But those were sort of fun activities that focused everyone on, say, buying a B card.
Well, so the punchline to this kind of section of I guess, our story today is, I'm guessing at the end of the year you got them over the line financially.
Yes.
Compared to previous years.
Yep. Pretty much, yeah.
And then you go into the world of You said a DVD company, but I was like, were there DVDs knocking about in 1991?
So you're going to skip over my station manager years?
It's not in the list, mate. You gave me the list. What are you doing there?
I thought you knew. So after being
Well,
advertising
no, you just
manager,
gave me. It's the first time someone's given me something so robust, and so I thought,
dude, that was so pruned down. I could have written 4 pages. See, there really should be 3 podcasts with me.
well, we'll see how we go today and how much time we've both got.
No, but this is the thing, right? Yeah. So basically, after being advertising manager for a year, Judy was stepping down.
Yeah. Hang on, wait. Nick, tell me about the time you were station manager.
Well, I was actually the last station manager to be elected.
Yeah.
So all the positions in Radio B at the time, Campus Radio, you were elected to the role. So you had to have worked within, you had to have the backing of your peers, as it were. But what that often...
Who were you elected in by? Students' Association or BFM people?
Staff and volunteers.
Staff and volunteers, yeah.
So you had like 7 or 8 staff, and then there was like easily 120 volunteers, and they all got a vote.
I assume you all stood up, or there was some sort of comms beforehand to tell them all what your mandate was for the...
Yeah, there were meetings, and
Yeah.
we talked, and it was a real sort of chinwag type of town hall type meeting type of stuff. And actually, so what happened was we're just getting our FM warrant to go FM, so we're going to switch to FM and go full time. So there was this... After Judy, there was this sort of a 10-week interim thing, and another guy got elected because and it was very narrow. It was 50-50. I just lost. He just won because he'd been through the process of getting us to this FM warrant, so it's felt that he would be better to carry us over. And then we had another election which I won by a significant amount because people... I won't shy from it. It was divisive, that election process, because people did have a fear that I was going to commercialise the station, that I was going to sell us out, because some of my ideas were a lot more wider than...
Market-driven.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
It does.
It was never that way. I was just more pragmatic.
Yeah.
And I thought, because I'd been told by the AUSA... we aren't going to bail you guys out. If you run out of money, that's it, it's over.
Yeah.
And we'd also had, Juliana had implemented with the business school, she got 2 guys in, and they'd done this report, and we'd done all these workshops as staff together, and it was really great. So we got this report, and they entitled it, these consultants from Auckland School of Business, and they were attuned to the station, they were aligned with the station. It was called Saving BFM, and they were recommending fundamental changes, which included get rid of electing staff, pick the roles that you need fulfilled, and find people that fit those roles. Because we had fallen into the trap of, well, yeah, you're a good guy.
The same people revolving around the different roles.
And it was more like, who do we want to pay people for? Oh, you can do this, or you could do that. We're making people take on a job, whereas finding a person, you need to find a person to do the job, not find a job for the person.
Yep.
So I was advocating to implement all this, and there's a lot of change. Anyway, so I became station manager, and onwards and upwards, and off we went. But a few of the people left, a few of the stalwarts left the station at the time because they weren't happy. They didn't have any faith in the right direction I was going, and it had been a divisive election. So
change is never. That's not an uncommon scenario you just explained.
But I was station manager for a year, and
why only a year? Oh, because it was voted in each year.
No. First thing I did with the board was saying we've got to get rid of this, and the board goes, yes, we do, and that was it. So I was the last station manager.
Yeah.
So we had agreed to get rid of that. But generally, station managers only lasted a year anyway, maybe a bit more, or maybe 2 tops. But that was really it. You did your thing, and then you went off to try and get a real
I'm
job.
writing a quite extensive history of Radioactive at the moment for Audio Culture, and that's exactly what I've found up to that period. Active being the Wellington station. It's year for the first however long of its life, and it's not till, in Active's case, very late 80s or early 90s that you get these longer tenures. And then up until recently, we had, I say we, it's funny how you leave student radio, but you still
think you're there.
Yeah. There was a person who was actually my boss for a minute, who ended up there 20 years, which is far too long, which is a whole other story.
Oh my gosh, we could talk that story. Yeah.
Oh, you know that story.
It's Radio B had it as well, but
right.
It's BFM. Now the thing was, and I thought about it years later, because Juliana had said to me during this divisive election campaign, she'd said, Nick, you've got great ideas, but the station's not ready for it. It's going to be divisive. You just need to chill out a bit and do your time, do some good work, and then get out there. And in hindsight, she's 100% right. And I will now give that same advice to anyone, because I was all vim and vigour and gusto and, hey, we're going to make... But you might have ended up... I think it's great advice. You might have ended up one of those people who stay in student radio too long. And no, I don't mean doing a show every now and again, but, Yeah. Well, the thing is, when I was there, so we brought in the school show, I was very much committed to trying to bring in a new blood and have our whole system whereby we didn't have guys still doing shows 3 years later. Now, special shows are different. Yeah. And there was a lot of the fear that I was going to get rid of the special shows, which was not the case. But anyway, I actually left because I was headhunted by 91 FM after we blitzed them on a promotion for Redhead Kingpin on Queen Street, where Queen Street was just shut for traffic, that little spot outside McDonald's where the record store was. And basically I'd call their attentions. They called me in for a meeting and said, we'd like to put you in the promotions team, and you could be promotions manager, but first you'd be assistant, then you'd be whatever. And that came at the same time that, having won all these battles, become station manager, implemented some changes. My crew, they weren't my crew, that's the wrong word. The people that supported me, so they were now working, and then suddenly I was battling them again, because I had said we need to be more professional, and I had certain people on staff, well, I don't want to write reports, I'm wasting my time. I said, well, how do I know? It was just, and maybe I did go too far. I'm just saying, being on the duty thing, maybe I did push it too far. But I just thought, well, I'm not going to have another freaking battle.
Was it quite a stressful year?
It was stressful, yeah. Very stressful.
Yeah. How old are you by then? Still in your 20s?
No, I was about 72 by then. I was like, But that was the thing, right? I remember.
No, seriously, you're still in your 20s, right?
I remember one staff meeting, I was in a neck brace because I did some sort of stress thing going on, and my whole neck had seized up, and people, certain members of staff, when they're going, oh, let's see how long we can keep in there, they were just mocking me.
Oh, no.
And as I say, it was factionalised. It was just sort of crikey.
Before we move out of the BFM era, at least in terms of you working, you were also polarising because you basically tried to introduce a lot more brown music than the station was used to, right?
Yeah.
Have I heard something like that? Does that sound along the lines of...
Well, that goes all back...
Because we started back to the Seven Andrews who went to private school. It's sort of like the kind of...
Now, don't get me wrong, those guys...
No, we're not talking about those guys. Yeah. It's like, I'm saying I get the tension of...
Yeah. So punk was king back then.
Yeah.
We had Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. We had the album, The Message. We had all that stuff. It was being played. Magic Swan was being played. But, of course, you could only play one track in your 3-hour show. Yeah. You would literally play the second track and the phones would light up.
You got to play one of those and 9 Joy Division songs.
Yeah. So it was kind of, I'm talking about listeners, it was accepted. You could play one because we're diversity, and all that before diversity was a thing. But God forbid you'd play 2. So I would have to, in my show, first hour, play it in the first half hour, so I could play another one half an hour before I finish my show, and therefore, you've had 90 minutes in between, please don't go crazy. So
was it like a time, was it unspoken, unwritten rule about the 90 minutes between hip-hop tracks?
It was definitely this is something I created to get around. Most people either didn't play any rap, or they'd play one track.
But the no rap thing was unwritten. There wasn't like, no one would have said you can't play too much rap.
No, not taking anything away from Cam Australia then. No, there was nothing like that at all. It was just one of those things. But see, by 85, I was doing an afternoon show called The Smooth Show on Saturday, which was me and some of the guys from Smooth Crew and Megazoids and stuff. And that was the start of the dance. I mean, Simon Gregg says I was the first guy to do the BPM show, which I'm so murky on those days. So Smooth Crew was Saturday afternoon, 85. I think Radioactive beat us to the punch with their own Uncut Funk show, but I was playing tracks there that I knew the crew wanted to hear, so I was trying to get to a different audience. The people that had been in basically the hip-hop thing, they could hear it on the station. Yeah. And that was popular, and there was no compunction about me having that show.
Yeah.
Within the station, they were going, oh, good, we can say we're doing that.
Yeah.
Now, later on, a few years later, which I fully understand, Roger Perry is pointing out, well, he's still... I was a much more commercial hip-hop, because I'm thinking of the guys... Roger brought in the more club aspect.
Yeah, because you sound like sort of like Severe. He's kind of got that more down the line, not mainstream, but you're kind of more on that tip. I mean, different eras, but... Yeah,
it was an alternative to what else was being played on the station, but it could have been an LA hip-hop station or something like that. I played Bobby Brown.
Great. New Jack Swing sort of stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. And yet, of course... And this is how we have it. It's an Auckland thing.
Yeah.
We want to be the coolest. We want to have the most import thing. And so it was considered that I should be playing more obscure stuff and all that. But whatever.
We'll skip over maybe the...
I just finished quickly on the BFM thing. So when I decided to go, I realised that I had to go a step back. And so I appointed Liz Tan as my successor, because... If anyone knows Liz Tan, she was quite a cool chick at the time. She was OJ Rhythm Slave. She was just worked in every camp. She had a foot in everything, and I could see her as a great uniter to bring back the people that had left under me because they didn't want to work under me, as it were. And that's actually what happened. So the station became a lot better straight away by just taking me out of the personality of me out of the equation.
It's good that you're self-aware.
Yeah, well, anyway. But it worked. I didn't care. I was gone. So it's like, who's best to do it? We didn't need another Nick D'Angelo. We didn't need...
Yeah, and what I'm finding with, again, researching that Active article is that, I mean, not too much change, but some kind of revolving door in an institution like that seems to suit it better ultimately for a number of reasons than people stagnating in key roles. Yeah.
Well, the weird thing is, when I left, I almost immediately came back because...
that'll happen.
No, but I started doing the Wire show as a host. And I'm doing interviews.
Did you enjoy that, doing a current affairs show? You'd be good.
It was fantastic.
Did you
great fun.
Did you do any kind of hard-hitting
Well, Jackie Brown
interviews?
was my producer.
Great.
I mean,
yeah.
It was just a lovely show.
Did you box any politicians into a corner?
Didn't have them on my show. I was doing Mondays, I think.
Oh,
No one else could be up that early, 10 o'clock in the morning. No one else could be allowed to be up there on Monday morning. But
Not even Mikey, who was doing the breakfast show from 7 to 10.
No, Mikey was there, but obviously it's someone to take over.
Yeah.
Mikey was hilarious.
Oh, okay.
I went in once and...
when he was on, when he's on point, he's probably one of the best broadcasters New Zealand's ever seen.
Yeah. In the 90s, I was doing the dance parties.
I did the Band-Aid show for him when I came back to New Zealand. They got me in, didn't tell me they expected me to give him a run for his money, which is the last thing I was going to do. I treated it like I was a warm-up for the main stand-up comedian, And he just got later and later and later again, but his producers would give me no content. So I'm on like primetime B at 7:30 in the morning, just playing a song, saying the time, and my name's attached to it. That was tough. That's like 2007, 2008, so it was still happening. So I think the latest he got in one morning was 8:45 for a show that I was supposed to do 6 to 7 for him, and he was supposed to do 7 to 10, yeah. It's a funny, It's a shame.
I rocked up to the station one morning after I'd done a dance party. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm driving home and realised Mikey had not turned up.
Yeah.
And I knew the door code.
Yeah.
So I parked the car, ran up there and started doing his show.
Yeah.
Wondering when he's going to walk in. And, of course, this is before trolling was a thing. I was telling the listeners that Mikey was gone. Mikey had taken the money and he's joined in the commercial studio, so you're not going to hear from... That's it. And I was just winding up the audience, and people were ringing and going, "Yeah, Mikey, I never liked him." And it was so funny, the vitriol. I'm picking that. Everyone goes, "Where's my mate? Don't let him go." We wanted the same thing we had with Marcus. But it was funny because Mikey turned up at 7:45. I don't think he thought it was that funny at the time because he'd been listening as he was driving in. But
well, that's the thing. He left himself so wide open so many times. But again, that's another whole story for another day. Like, to me, and to remember, you and I both started this by saying he's one of the most talented broadcasters. Well, you nodded when I said that New Zealand's ever seen. But it's almost like he wasn't disciplined early on enough. Like, once you realise that you can get away with that, it becomes like pathological. And then the station had a weird kind of codependent relationship with him for years, where they'd get rid of him and then they'd bring him back.
There's a definite
So they were almost like, like in a flat. This is like really dating me, this cultural reference. When you're in a flat and the phone rings early on a weekend morning, the person that gets up to answer it's the person that's got to get up to answer it for the rest of the time. Like habits are set by stakeholders. Yeah, so it was a funny one.
Mikey was extremely popular with everyone.
Yeah.
Listeners, advertisers,
he's got
members.
charisma. I used to be so pissed off with him before some of those mornings when I was being like putting my name out on the air and it was late and I had to go to my actual job. Well, and then he'd come into the room and charm the pants off everyone.
This is one thing I want to wedge in, right?
Yeah.
So for everything that I did wrong on the station, you have to remember, I was never trained.
Yeah.
I did nothing. I just walk in one year and join the throng. And all of us in student radio at that time, we didn't go to broadcasting school.
No one did.
We didn't go to business school.
No one did.
So I didn't know how to manage people. Suddenly it's like, oh, you're the boss now. You're in charge. Like, okay, so definitely I handled things badly with some people, which I apologise for, but there was no training.
You're so right. And also, Mikey, we were also young.
Yeah, Mikey was just a guy who you wound him up, set him off, and off he went. He knew what he wanted to do. He went off and did it, and everyone let him do it.
That's such a great description.
And it was fantastic. Yeah. I mean, Mikey is such a talent. I'm still waiting for him to turn up on that Masked Singer thing. I want to see someone pull a mask off, and there's Mikey. That would be hilarious.
Actually, that's not outside of the realm of possibility for that sort of show. I haven't been following it. Some people say it's a total car crash. Other people are really enjoying it.
I watched the first one. It was the same car crash as the overseas one, so I didn't need to watch anymore.
God, have you watched the New Zealand Apprentice?
I watched the first one again.
They're just some terrible humans on that show.
I was thinking I'm going to join up for The Apprentice next time because that would be fun. I would love to just troll my way through that. Just
have one, because they're all so young and beautiful.
Exactly.
Just have one older guy.
Have some boomer standing there going, well, back in my day, I don't understand why you're doing this. This is rubbish.
Fucking social media campaign. We've got a zip through the 90s, mate, which I know you as...
party promoter.
Yeah, party promoter. And, I remember the level of kind of, to me, concept and detail and the names of the parties and the flyers. I have a distinct memory of you being down at Active for some reason. Well, not for some reason, for one of those gigs. Mm-hmm. With a bunch of people. Might have been Chelsea and stuff for was it the Island of E or one of those?
Yep.
It seemed like, as I say, quite a polished and organised affair there in terms of what you're putting on. I don't really have a question there, but so how did I mean, we all know that era was when dance parties got really big in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But how did you end up where you got to with that?
Well, basically, it was at 91. I got headhunted by 91 FM. I only lasted there 6 months.
Yeah, but just quickly, before you keep saying that name, is that sort of like a ZM kind of a station?
Yeah, it
is ZM.
It's now ZM.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So basically the government sold them off. So ZM became 91. Yeah, 1ZM became 91 FM, 91 ZM.
ZB was their ad-free station. ZM was their commercial station for years. The government
until they went commercial.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I lasted there a very short time, and it was funny because at BFM everyone thought I was too commercial in my thinking. When I got to 91,
you were the radical.
I just didn't mesh. And this is probably a lot of people when you talk about these long timers at student radio. It's very hard to adjust to something else. I know many others have, but I mean,
well, for me doing this, all these years later, I was of some note for my on-air antics. Was the first person to do the breakfast show in Wellington for money, full time. But I just knew commercial radio wasn't for me. And then I always feel like if I'd gone to RNZ, I would have made a fart joke that made everyone I'm not kind of buttoned down and
we're not on student radio.
I'm not
Lewis.
that
You
guy.
can't do fart jokes.
I'm not that guy either.
Yeah.
So I get it. Yeah.
So one of the things I did in '91 is we had a rap competition. This is me being Nick D'Angelo, trying to repeat some of the ideas that I knew really worked. And I think it was MC Hammer was coming to town, or might have been Bobby Brown. Well, we did something at the power station with a ZM rap competition, and let's say I got into some drama there behind the scenes by me. Nothing nasty, but I wasn't behaving in a professional corporate manner. So that's just one thing. So basically I wasn't meshing. I got arrested in the 91 FM promo van at 8 o'clock on Dominion Road.
What were you doing?
I was driving without a licence.
Oh, yeah.
And what I didn't know was the guy had taken my licence or whatever, lived in the street parallel to mine, and had seen that my 91 FM van was still parked outside my house every day, and that I was clearly still driving. So he pulled me over at 8 in the morning, and that was it. I had to catch a taxi and get someone to take the thing. Funny things have happened to me in my life, but anyway. So I had to leave because I got periodic detention as a fine and stuff and what have you. So I then joined...
In the PD van.
Then I joined up with Endeavour Video. I was there for a brief time, less than a year, and that was John Barnett was running it. He was a great guy. I learnt a lot. But he sold out to Roadshow Video, so his entire catalogue has been taken over. We were going to be morphed into theirs, and yet they wouldn't give us written contracts. And I was the only guy that wouldn't move. I said, look, I said to them at the transition thing, I said, if you don't give me a written contract, I'm not moving. And they said, well, we want to see how you go. Da-da. I said, no, I walked. They took everyone else on, lesson learned, because within 3 months, everyone was gone. It was a buyout thing, if you know about buyouts and stuff.
Yeah.
So they jettisoned all the old staff, so I was glad that I went. I went from video distribution to magazine distribution. So I worked for the second largest magazine distributor, including all the porn titles.
Yeah.
Gay porn titles that weren't even allowed in the country because they were, oh my gosh, those are never passing the censor. Fun times. But again, not for me. Working 9 to 5 is not for me. So in 94...
What was your role in the magazine company, like trying to sell...
I was official title was International Accounts Manager, and I was told I'd be travelling overseas to these big things in Zurich and Munich and these big book-selling things. Never happened.
Right.
I did have a couple of American distributors coming out for various products, and the story I sometimes tell... What we know about Halloween now, where it's all over the warehouse come October, you can buy everything Halloween, right? Yeah. This actually started back, 92 or so. We had these used distribution companies coming down to us and wanting us, because we were in all the retailers and the stationery shops and stuff, and they pitched us on this huge thing about, let's make Halloween big in New Zealand. And we did the numbers, and we're selling all the party supplies, the banners, everything Halloween that you see, for instance, at the warehouse. We said no. The warehouse said yes.
Yeah.
It's that idea. If you stock it, it will sell.
Yeah.
It's that whole idea. So warehouse went big on it, and that is why we now have kids dressing in little costumes that they bought off the rack.
But how does that relate to a magazine company?
Because it's about distribution.
Right.
It's about getting that rack space, about getting that shelf.
So you were offered Halloween products?
As a company,
As a company, right.
For this major American distributor.
So the company did more than magazines?
No. We basically did magazines.
Yeah.
But we also, stuff like posters and all that ancillary stuff.
I got it, yeah.
But they were trying to convince us to create the rack space to sell.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% got you. And that is, in fact, you're right. Because I can carbon date that to my childhood, which was before that, just, the decade before that. Halloween was a few people trick-or-treated, but it suddenly was like this weird American thing that we did.
And you used to make your own costume if you did it.
But
But then
that's
suddenly
true.
everything was off the shelf.
Yeah. And you probably, it's like that thing that like capitalism's so clever like that. Like if you have I'm just guessing, if you have the homemade competition, homemade costume, you're like the poor kid or whatever.
You became the poor kid.
Yeah. Capitalism's clever like that. So from the magazine, you obviously leave the 9 to 5, and this is where I'm guessing that kind of more full scale promoting rather than.
Well, what happened was I got married.
Yep.
And I had a wedding.
Yep.
Which we'd done myself with
Yep.
my baby mama, and no babies then, of course. And so we had the reception, and then after the reception, we decided to have a party down at a club. And I thought, how do I pay for the honeymoon in Bali?
You made your reception a dance party.
So I had done a couple of months earlier with Manuel Bundy, we'd done a party called Inferno. And it was a 70s disco night, all funk, and it was super cool, and it sold out. It went really well down at the Box. And actually, it might have been the year before. And then Greg Stoffels had been doing Absolute Disco, and he was doing it more than once. And I was like, oh, you can repeat your night? You can do it again? Because you did it, Manuel and I did it as a one-off. We never thought, this was early 90s. We had no idea of repeating it.
Yeah.
So a year later, my wedding comes around, and I thought, okay. So I wanted to do it different. Everyone was doing 70s parties. Everyone 70s funk, really hardcore, obscure stuff, hit stuff, disco stuff, whatever. So I came up with the idea of retro, which was bringing back the 80s. Hand on my heart, it had not been done. I did it, and it was huge.
It became a thing at the Box for many years, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was me. But
I know that, yeah.
Another thing. But it was funny because we've had the wedding, we've had the reception. I'd sent out invites to the club night to people that I couldn't invite to the wedding or the reception, because you can't invite everyone. Half of them didn't turn up because and it was a cool flyer, especially maybe. Anyway, some of them didn't come.
Yeah.
But we bowl up, and there are people queuing down High Street. My wife gets out of, she's getting out of the car. She's in a wedding dress. So we're having our party in Course Celeb, which is invites only with their special passes and stuff. Next door, the Box is the paid people.
Is that because they knew? Did you publicly promote it as well?
Yeah, retro.
Yeah, gotcha.
I took an ad schedule on B, promoting it on B.
Yeah.
And so they all came for the Box. And then Tom Sampson, but it was really early, 11:30 at night. Tom's coming and goes, we're full. We can't get any more in. What do you want to do? I said, I don't know. And then we look in Celeb, and there we are with our 120 friends or whatever. It's like, we'll bring them in here then. So we just kept going. And so we've got these 7-foot drag queens there. And my father's going, do you know these people? I'm like, yeah, they're all friends. They're all friends. People talking to my wife. The punter's coming in and going, why are you wearing a wedding dress? Oh, I just got married. Oh, that's so cool. It was a freaking great night.
Great.
And that launched it.
Yeah.
Because I thought after that, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I did. And so it became...
Yeah, you tick all the boxes for doing it, and it was the right era for you to move in that direction.
Right time, capitalise on it.
But
and I delivered. So I started doing pretty much every 3 or 4 months. And I started doing it, what I would pick was the Sunday night of a long weekend.
Yeah.
Whether it's Labour weekend, Easter weekend, or anniversary weekend in Auckland is late January. So in Queen's birthday weekend. So I created a night on the Sunday when most clubs never a thing. And so there was a symbiotic relationship between me, Box, Course Celeb. Later I moved over to Squid, did stuff there. And we just had a good system going between us.
We're doing a reunion gig for the 90s club scene in Wellington. And funny you say that, we're doing it on the Sunday of Queen's birthday weekend. So there you go. I didn't choose the day,
It's
but
a
it
great
makes
day.
sense. It totally makes sense. And I can go down there, I can get a hotel room for a couple of days. I have Monday off work,
Yeah.
Take a little bit of Tuesday morning off work. Doesn't matter, I can catch up. Great. Much better than going down for a Friday night thing, but baked from the end of work.
So the retro thing went off. And then I realised, well, that's just one product, as it were.
Yeah.
there's got to be other stuff. I can't make a living. I can't live a life just doing retro every 4 months. So
Halloween supplies.
So special supplies. No, a lot of people did that. But anyway,
Yeah, they did.
have you got your Halloween surprise? Yeah. Anyway,
I'd have 3 pumpkins and
there were, because it's just other stuff. So the other parties sort of not drifted. They came along as well at various stages. So there was Island of E.
Yeah, it had a kind of Planet of the Apes. I'm testing my memory. Was there a kind of Planet of the Apes?
No, we used that. That's the one you're thinking about, the one in Wellington. We used a still.
God, how do I remember this shit?
Of
the useless shit.
The Wellington one, the flyer
Why
was...
do I remember that? Your flyer
had the guy from
23 years ago.
Well, it was cool.
It was cool.
Why.
But it's useless.
No, at that time you thought it was cool.
This whole podcast is you know.
So that was the thing. No, but it was all youth culture. And
that was...
And years later, people would make a lot of money out of it.
And it was totally, and kind of, oh God, that's a whole other conversation for another day. The rock and roll stadiumification of dance music. Right?
God.
Yeah.
So there's Island of E. There was Cheap Sex.
Yeah, so cool.
There's Wet and Wild.
That's a terrible name.
Brit popping.
What was the Wet and Wild?
So Cheap Sex had been going very successfully.
Yeah.
And the thing about these things is it's like Madonna.
Cheap Sex is like
how do you refresh yourself?
Yeah.
Because people go, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So retro, for instance, retro became retro a go-go. Because I was doing retro, and by the end of the year, about 6 to 9 months down the line, every other club started going, retro nights.
Yeah. Yeah, they were a thing.
And I learnt, well, how do the people know that I'm the original retro guy or whatever without doing a wanky flug? It's, hey, the original retro guy. You know.
Put it on the side of your car.
So we changed the name to Retro a Go-Go.
Yeah.
Fine. You want to go to another retro night? Fine. But anyway, this was Retro Go-Go.
Yeah.
Down at a box called Sleb. And that later became a thing for why I trademarked the word millennium for my New Year's Eve party. So anyway, we had Cheap Sex. Cheap Sex was a very particular party.
Yeah.
Catered to all the cool people, but it was also people into leather, people into PVC, people who just wanted to dress up and have sexy time fun.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a sex club.
Yeah.
It was not about that. And if that's what you thought it was about, you weren't welcome and you didn't last long.
No, because it was at Squid. It was a club night that got a bit risque.
Exactly. That's all in as much as it was. It was fantastic, though. It was a great night. But then not everyone is comfortable wearing bondage gear or whatever.
Or tits being out
or whatever.
Yeah.
So Wet and Wild, because I wanted to do a foam party.
Yeah.
So I tracked down some foam machines. And so we called it Wet and Wild, and it was that sort of 50s beefcake, girls in bikinis, grainy black and white footage, sort of that whole thing. That became the thematic of it.
Yeah.
So it's all fun and stuff, but people then could wear their beach shorts, they could wear their bikinis or whatever. You could do. It's up to you.
So some space in town, like a night. Yeah.
It was less sex than cheap sex, right? You weren't going to see someone fisted on the bar or something like that.
But that didn't happen at Cheap Sex, did it?
We had shows. No, sorry, no fisting. No. Sorry.
I was going to say, Jesus.
No, sorry, yeah. Sorry.
I'm out.
Yeah. No, we had live body piercings.
Right. Okay, that's a little different.
And that was, genitals being pierced.
Yeah.
We had suspensions, people with hooks and stuff, and hung and so forth. So those were in areas of the two-story club where you could either go and look at that, or you could just somewhere. Anyway.
Yeah.
So Wet and Wild was very short-lived because the foam machines turned out to be not what we anticipated. They were actually an effects machine for television. So when you see that primordial ooze coming out for the
I can picture exactly what you mean.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers or something. That's what it was. It would produce, instead of producing smoke, it produced a whole lot of bubble foam. So we literally, the first time we had it's hanging in the rafters. Everyone's waiting for because you turn them on. They're really hard. We turn the machine on, and then this foam comes out, and it's like
a toothpaste tube.
A bit more than that, but it was like I was thinking, we could have had this thing running for 6 hours, before the club opened, and would still only be maybe possibly ankle deep or knee deep
And
in
it's
foam.
all like dirty from bottom of people's shoes and stuff.
So
It's just this brown.
But the reality was it didn't matter. I mean, people were as high as kites, and they were just trying to scoop the foam out of the rafters and stuff, and it was fun.
You know, I don't know why I need to ask this, but I do. You must have since found out, what do they use to do this? Is it just, there must be a machine that's basically a little bit of dishwash detergent or whatever, and like, how do you...
It's basically, at its crux, it's that, but it's more scientific with the formula of the
But
juice.
that's different to what you had. You
Yeah.
needed with like you see them all the time now. It's
But
kind of a,
but even
it's kind of an EDM staple. The kind of
Even back then, it's the later 90s, when you see these foam cannons, that's what I wanted.
yeah, I get it.
I didn't get the foam cannon.
No. You got some sort of like polyfiller, polyfiller. Like
I got
yeah.
foam, and so I was
Foam.
like, so those only lasted 3 or 4, and then we thought, nah.
Hey, as I say, we've been going quite a long time, and I don't want to end on a bum note, so I'll just ask about this quickly, and then we'll finish off chatting about something else. But you're saying that, because I was away from New Zealand, from kind of obviously coming back, but I was away 2000 to 2007, and I did notice the kind of general decorum change, but you reckon that the meth kind of wiped out a lot of things?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Just
know.
people's vibes, or...
Well, I knew guys who
Because it was sort of a cool thing
So
at the beginning.
Clubland was Clubland, and
Yeah.
you went to different places, you went to different things, and so there was like a community of club kids, and
Yeah.
they survived happily for 7 years doing ecstasy every weekend.
Yeah,
No problem.
yeah,
And I literally saw the change
Yeah.
once meth came in. So the people that were encouraged or whatever, for whatever reason, switched to this new drug called meth.
yeah.
Within 6 months, some of them were skeletal, some of them were just...
It's crazy, man.
And it killed the whole vibe because people no longer wanted to go out.
Yeah.
So it took away...
Or if they do, they're kind of like just devoid of vibe.
It was no longer uplifting. It was no longer fun. Now, it might have been... Maybe the first few times with meth were fun.
Yeah.
And that's why people would have done it and go,
Yeah.
this is great, and go get some more.
Yeah,
As all drugs work that way.
yeah,
But overall, it really killed the whole scene.
yeah.
No one anywhere would argue
Also,
with that.
though, people can get addicted to anything, absolutely anything. It's a lot more, because what I'm getting at, and I'm probably don't up preaching to the choir here, it's a myth that everyone gets hooked on meth, but it's also in the same breath, it's far less it's far less common to hear of someone actually having an ecstasy addiction. You know what I mean? So there's that side of it too. How
Well, that's the hard part about kicking addictions, because not only are you addicted to the drug or the chemical itself, but maybe it's more the lifestyle and the people you hang around with and what happens to you when you're
there's
high.
a lot to it. I could talk to you about addiction for a long time.
I don't want to get into it, but that's
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah.
So it's really hard to get away because you might have stopped taking the drug.
But the funny thing is, as I say, when I came back, because I've been around all the stuff we've talked about, kind of music industry, I was a DJ, I don't know you Auckland people as well as my Wellington people, but I did live here for a brief spot, kind of 99, got to know a few people. And yeah, coming back 2007, there was something in the air, and I pin a lot of it to, I think I came at the tail end of a lot of this. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And it felt like a bunch of people were rebuilding. I turned up, that's what it felt. It was all unspoken. It's just observation. Does that sound about right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's people, just trying to create new things and start again. And this is the thing, as much as I think of my time as how great it was and in my own little kingdom, how important I was, or my own universe, that I was an integral part of it, I've met 1 million people, honestly, 1 million, count them, who don't know who the heck I am.
Yeah.
They have no idea what I did.
Yeah.
They went clubbing in the 90s, never heard of any of my parties, never went to any of my parties, and yet they were, in their own minds, as they'll tell you, they were club kids at the time. And I get that, right? Everyone's got their own story.
They
Everyone's
do.
got their own little clique that they went with.
Doing this has made me realise that. Like, this has been quite, not an indulgent one, but when I started talking to a bunch of the key people on the show that I wanted to, I quickly realised, because you're on social media with your broader people, your people went to school with or whatever, that I live in a bubble of the people that...
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's great, Why have the one... Why doesn't... It's not all Richie McCaw, mate. Maybe we should end there. We did the myth. There was a nice little socially aware bit at the end. But I would, as I say, I would have liked to chat more about the 90s onwards. But we were quite forensic about your time at BFM. Have you enjoyed this?
It's been good, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just leave you one thought.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm serious. It's your podcast.
Yes.
I want to come in and do another one with you. You, the subject, me, the
Oh, my
interviewer.
God.
I want to hear the Lewis Tennant story.
Okay.
And you can't ask yourself. It'd be really boring. But I'd be
What do you mean I can't ask myself?
It would just be you talking to yourself for an hour.
You know, there are some shows like that.
Oh, my
Bill
goodness.
Burr does it really well.
Well, you need someone who doesn't know you.
Okay.
So
I'll
I'd
have to
really
think about that.
Yeah,
I think you'd be good.
Well, you can edit it. I mean, you're in control. You edit it and put it up.
I try not to edit a lot of these.
So-
That's been said before. Yeah.
But I think you need someone, an outsider removed. So I would love
This
to
is the
interview
most
you.
uneasy I've felt on the show ever.
Good. Lucky it's not video.
No, good. Thank you. Cheers, mate.